So something I've been thinking about lately, and it comes from reading Kittler's book Optical Media, and maybe this will be partly an attempt to seduce people into studying McLuhan's work. It is the centennial of McLuhan, and I'm trying to promote McLuhan's work right now. The way that I would want to come into this, and this is very tangential, it's not really related to optical media, but it made me think about it, um, I guess, as far as some of the problems posed by new media or challenges or questions that could be raised. And it came up in a conversation with someone the other day about whether or not there would ever be realistic live time Smellovision. And I, was somewhat half heartedly, but somewhat seriously going, no, that's never going to happen. And the person went, no, it's going to happen. It's on the way. And the person was sort of saying, look, it's going to come soon enough. And I think he was kidding as well. And we were both just sort of having fun with it. But later, the more that I thought about it, the more that I thought that, yes, smell-o-vision as a thought is a very, I think it's a useful imagination pump to get, I guess, people to think about what are digital media and how digital media have come to so predominate our lives and our culture that we could imagine something like smell-o-vision or smell that would accompany the uh, objects that we see through digital media, through technical media. Now, I'm well aware that even in the 50s, Disney, they had theaters where they had squirt in little sprays of various kinds of scents at certain parts of certain films. And I think there are other technologies where I could try to, we can try to imagine the 3D glasses that also have the little nose implant that they're going to, be filled with various chemicals and they're going to puff in there. And again, I'm not suggesting that it isn't scientifically possible, but I think the more that one thinks about smell-o-vision, the more that it reveals what the digital media are doing and how digital abstractions are able to decontextualize in a way that I think smell just never will. And it's important, I think, to say that touch, taste, and smell are often called the bedroom senses, and they're set in contrast to both vision and hearing, which are known as distance senses. I think it's also important that to register that it's partly the way that your body operates with different senses. I mean, your body, the actual physiological processes are different, but the properties of the objects that the senses deal with are also different. I mean, light has a constant speed. Sound, it has, for practical purposes, a constant speed. Now, certainly it varies a little bit according to atmospheric pressure, and it will vary significantly, I guess, depending on a medium. The sound travels quite fast through dense medium, but through dense media. But I think that I think the general issue there is that when you move to smell, it doesn't have a speed in the world in the way that light waves and sound waves are waves. See, a smell is a kind of chemical composition that is physiologically going on. Now, someone could argue that about the eye. Now, light comes in, and I guess the wave, what bleaches rhodopsin. I mean, there's all kinds of physiological process that goes on in your eye that makes um, I guess after images possible, and it is interesting. In the ancients, they kind of believed that your eyes were like the sun, and your eyes would project light, or sight kind of was similar to the eyes, and that the eyes had little light rays that made the things visible. I think it's funny that Kittler talks about the history of the bullseye lamp. It's very interesting in that, the bullseye lamp was this lamp that poachers would use because the animals would get stunned and they would stare at the light, and then the poacher would take advantage of that. It's interesting, he gives that comparison to the way audiences are being held kind of, staring at the light while those wily corporate advertisers are basically going to poach on them, right? They're very interesting comparisons between film and the bullseye lantern. Okay, I don't know where all this is going, but I think the point of the story was that the person who wants to claim, just for example, say the person who wants to claim that there will one day be digital media for olfactory phenomena. Is that the case? Will there be Smellovision one day? And soon enough you're going to buy a TV, and when the McDonald's commercial comes on, they're going to puff a Big Mac. Is it going to be a smell of a fry in your living room? See, now part of it doesn't make sense. See, I think we can start to see how it doesn't make sense in that digital values, audio values, visual values, they seem to be decontextualizable, and that's part of what the digital revolution is. I mean, the digital revolution has been the movement away from the analog, which has been a movement for decontextualization, the sort of ability to take bits and parts and remove them wholesale and then freely manipulate them into other parts. Again, management of forms of decontextualization. That's so much what the digital allows for, makes possible. And I think, if you think about that, think of how often the camera angle jumps around from scene to scene in a television show or in a movie. You're going to see so much, I guess, change of scene that the smells, what would happen? I mean, the puff of one smell comes in. How would it clear away in order to make room for the new smell that comes with the corresponding new camera angle? See, I think the digital age of digitally altered vision and digitally altered sound is now so much where people live, it's so much where they dwell, that people can, in their imagination, think that Smellovision would be next. But I think they're not seeing, it's just my sense of it, that they're not seeing the qualitative distinction between something like vision and sound, which as distant senses deal with waves, and those waves have a kind of universal speed. Again, granted that sound changes speed according to medium, but they seem to be subject to kinds of digital manipulation in a way that I'm not sure that smell or olfactory values ever will be. I mean, those seem to be inherently analogic. They seem to be inherently within a space or time, and they're not going to allow for a quick hopping around. Now, let's try to get to that. Again, I want to get at this more. You're not, I guess, always smelling things, kind of walking around, and smell and taste are interrelated. A lot of taste is smell, but there does seem to be a sense, I guess, in which there really is no such thing as silence. You seem to be always hearing. You seem to be always hearing. And even if I close my eyes, there always seems to be something seen. Now, even if if I'm looking at the after images on the surface of the back of my eyelids, or if I'm just imagining something with my mind's eye, or there seems to be some, again, kind of odd flow of non-visible images behind one's eyelids, whatever that would mean. It seems like you can't ever see nothing. There can't ever be a total absence of all seeing, and there can't, short of dreamless sleep, that we remember having been. I don't think it's something that we directly experience. Sound too. It seems like even a sound itself, no matter where you go, you try to get to a soundproof room. You're at least, even there, you're listening to the blood flow through your body. The sounds just seem inevitably present wherever there's action or activity. And sound also, you can always make room for more sound. It allows for overlays, and sounds compete for one another, but can always allow for another pouring in a way that visual values, they sort of occupy space in such a way that they literally compete with one another, and you can block one with another, whereas sound, it sort of just overlays it, and depending on how you focus your attention, maybe you can still pick it out buried in there. Smell. Smell certainly, I think, has layers. It seems to have, I guess, capacities for range. Again, but it does seem like sometimes I'm not smelling anything. I think I smell things once they come near and they get close enough. That's why, there's funny. I think there was a Futurama. I was talking this with a friend, and talking about this with a friend, and he said to me that Futurama had some where they had the like a smelloscope, and it was like a telescope where you were smelling distant things, or a microscope that was smelling things. I think those are funny examples as well. Um, Again, that the eye is relied upon there. Again, it's very interesting. But to really try to get at what are the differences between the senses, what are the differences between the visual field, the auditory field, and the olfactory, I guess, experiences that we have, and then what are the differences in the kinds of phenomena that those senses open up to? Will the sense of smell ever be digitized? I don't think that it will. I don't think it can be represented. I think, if anything, in a lot of ways, it's an index rather than a symbol. And so, yeah, could there be a little squirter that has a chemical inside your computer or inside your television that occasionally would, burst out a little blueberry scent when the commercial comes on? I guess maybe. Would it need to be refilled? How would that work? It seems as if smell is that kind of information, which really it can be, I guess, recreated, but not sent at a distance through an artificial simulation or a representation. Now, if this sounds to people like I'm not realizing what science is, and I don't understand what the issue is, in that we are soon enough going to have Smellovision, and soon enough on everybody's cell phone you're going to have little commercials that are going to blow out puffs of a Whopper, and or I don't know, smells from a movie. People may be right. Part of me wants to say no. The more that people believe that, the more that they believe that that's actual or possible, I think the more that they're probably living in wholly digital environments, ones where it's starting to cover over the radical differences between those kind of distant senses like hearing and sight, which can deal with, I guess, digitally abstracted information that's symbolic, and the proximal senses of touch and smell and taste, which seem more indexical rather than symbolic, and they seem to be not something subject to the kind of digitalization that the electric media make possible. Now, clearly, counting does offer a kind of digitalization. In fact, for McLuhan, the digits are for a good reason. Your hands are your digits, and your fingers, you have digits there. And digitalization begins with counting. And it, for him, number is a tactile sense. That is, the tactility sense is what discloses number, which is very, very interesting. At any rate, those are some thoughts about Smellovision. I would love to hear what others have to think about that. Okay, thanks.